The Long Dark is a very challenging exploration-based survival game where you as a solo player have to survive in the Canadian wilderness after your plane crashes due to a geometric storm. And a few months ago, at the end of July, they added a new game mode called Misery. Now this game mode is meant for expert players, which I am not. I have a good 58 hours under my belt, but I have found that knowing key locations in this game is vital, and any area outside of the recommended starting locations is a little foreign to me. So let's get into it and see how long I can survive in Misery mode. Which, if I'm being technical, is roughly 4 minutes because that's how long I lasted in my first save. Nope, not fast enough.
Okay. We go again. We go again. I died.
I spawned in the same location I had the first time. However, this time I decided to run to the left, picking up sticks along the way. Because in this game mode, you start with the absolute bare minimum, and I was gonna need fuel to burn if I managed to find matches. As I climbed to the top of a hill, on the other side was the very welcome sight of hay bales, and I now kinda knew where I was.
Oh, and if the farm is here, then Thompson's crossing must be just a little ways up the road from that.
I also found some rocks, which with my less than stellar aim won't be all that useful against wolves, but at least I had something that I could try to defend myself with. I couldn't see the barn when I stepped into the field.
Birch trees are my favorite type of tree. At least visually. I love redwood trees. Oh!
I'll die if I don't warm up soon.
Big find. Okay. So at the very least, a wolf isn't gonna kill me, because I'm gonna pop this flare if one even sees me.
I spotted the barn as I peeked over a hill, and went about looting the tractors sitting by it, finding nothing in the first one.
I don't think it's gonna be warmer when I go in there. No! I almost lit my fucking phone. That would have been bad. I don't think it's gonna be warmer when I go in there, and I don't have any means to actually start a fire.
I wasn't any warmer in the barn, but I had my fingers crossed that I could find a pack of matches laying around. The only things I found downstairs were a whetstone and a note, so I made my way upstairs where I found a book about bow hunting and a hidden can of spray paint.
I could use this.
And with that, my hopes for this run were quickly diminishing, because as much as I love spray paint in this game, it wasn't going to keep me warm. The only place I hadn't looted was the truck, and to my pleasant surprise, it was just warm enough in the truck to be raising my temperature. I would have liked it even more had there been matches in the glove box, but there wasn't. So instead I did an hour of research on my new book, which didn't do a whole lot for my temperature. So instead I slept so that I could get the bed warmth bonus, and after an hour my temperature was looking better. It was a little past midday, which I didn't love, because it was gonna get colder at night, and when that happened I had a feeling the truck would no longer be warm. So I risked sleeping for 1 more hour to get just a little warmer, before heading out with the hopes that I could make it to Thompson's crossing before night. But first I had to find the road, because that's the only way I know how to get there. And despite the fact that it was snowing, I wasn't losing temperature all that quickly. I didn't have all that much temperature to lose in the first place, though, and I lost the last of my warmth while crossing Contemplation Bridge. And Thompson's crossing was a little further than I thought it was, but my stats were looking okay by the time it was in sight, so I wasn't too worried about it. I went to the gas station first to hopefully find food and water, because I was gonna need those things very soon. And if I couldn't find any matches here, I only wanted to have one issue at a time. Luckily enough, though, matches were one of the first things I found, and I could start at least 12 fires now. I think you can also start fires using a flare, but I prefer to save mine to scare off wolves. I found some oats and a potato, which are things added to the game from the Tales of the Far Territory DLC, which I'm only mentioning because I'm hoping someone with more knowledge than me knows if these items take the potential spawn points of base game foods. because I can't eat the oats, and the potatoes don't do much in terms of food. And not to spoil anything, but it's a big issue later on. And I just want to know if I'd have more luck uninstalling the DLC for runs like this. I scored some dusty pork and beans
I'll be
from
hungry
this
later.
locker. There were also 2 carrots and 3 more potatoes in this vegetable holder thing, which was the last of the loot. And so I left the gas station to go to the community hall across the street.
Moose.
There was exactly 0 loot in the office, but there was a bathroom in this place, so water wasn't going to be an issue anytime soon. The most useful loot I found in the main room was this parka. The last room I looted was the kitchen, where I found some fresh
take
rabbit
this
in the
food.
freezer, a cooking skillet, and a can of tuna on the counter. I decided that I really needed to get a fire going before I died, but I didn't have all that much fuel for a fire, so I risked breaking down this chair for the extra wood, which cost me a not-so-small chunk of my health bar. It took 2 attempts to get a fire going. I was able to put enough fuel in to have a good 2 hours on this fire, which would be enough time to cook the food I wanted and to boil more water.
Oh, I shouldn't smash the can open. I'm gonna leave it. I should have just put the potato on. You lose calories if you smash the can open.
You also ruin the can when you smash it open, but I also don't know how common can openers are in this game mode, so it would have been silly to save it. I also decided at the last minute to cook all the potatoes I had, but there wasn't enough time on the stove and I didn't want to burn my researchable books, which is silly because you can't research books if you're dead. Either way though, my fire was about to go out, so I grabbed a torch so that I could find one of the beds and slept until my energy bar was full. There was an aurora going on when I woke up, so I used the light to recollect my stuff off of the stovetop and loot the cupboards that I had missed before. The only thing I found was a granola bar,
can always
which
use
is
more
better than
food.
nothing, I suppose. I researched an hour of my book and broke down a few things for materials, during which I got a little cold. But it was bright out now and I didn't want to waste the daylight warming back up. Plus, if I was going to be outside, my temperature was going to drop quickly no matter what. So I left to loot the houses of Thompson's Crossing. My health was about halfway down though, which wasn't exactly great, but at the very least my temperature wasn't dropping while inside, so that's a win. I found some salt and a floor potato, and since my temperature was going up, I broke down a chair for the wood. I found some books to burn in the bedroom and stole the water from the bathroom before taking my leave to the next house, stopping to raid this car, which had a marine flare and some lantern fuel in it. I was very unhappy to hear wolves howling, but they didn't sound like they were too close to the town, so I ran to the next building with the goal of looting Thompson's Crossing and taking my leave before they could become an issue.
And I'm gonna break this down for even more wood. I just need more stuff to burn. What?
I thought I hadn't been watching my temperature or something and I was about to die, but what actually happened was that the first stage of misery set in, otherwise called Hardship, which gave me diminished form, reducing my stamina and carrying capacity, and sensing vulnerability, wolves aren't likely to run during a struggle, which is actually less of an issue than you might think it is. The wolf thing, at least. Diminished stamina and carrying capacity are brutal, but I never planned on letting a wolf get near me so long as I had a flare, so they could be as pesky as they wanted. I went back to the community hall where I made the goofiest mistake. I started a fire in the fireplace instead of the stove.
Oh, but that's a silly, goofy thing to do. Start a freaking fire over there when I need a fire for the stove.
And it didn't even light with the first match. So it took 2 matches to get this fire going, and I couldn't even boil water or cook food with it. This is why we can't have nice things. It's also why I can't survive longer in the harder difficulties. I made use of the warmth bonus from the bed next to it to warm up quicker, after which I took as many torches as I could and went back out to loot more. I found a stale granola bar and some
Take this
gloves in a
food.
truck, before going into the church where I found plenty of books, and a bag of beef jerky, which I ate. I went to cross the lake to loot the cabins I had seen over there, making sure to pick up the cattail plants I saw along the way, which gives both a piece of tinder and something to eat. And before my torch could go completely out, I threw it down and used it to light another one. I also harvested these reshy mushrooms, which would have been useful if I remembered to actually use them. I was actually feeling pretty good about where I was in terms of materials. Other than matches, I would have been happier with more matches. But I had managed to find a few cattail plants, which gave me a little stash of food. I was fooled, though, because the cabins I had come over here to loot weren't actually accessible buildings. and I almost let my torch go out, catching it just in time to light another one, which I used to light a fire on the stove back in Community Hall so that I could cook my potatoes and boil more water, after which I planned on leaving Thompson's Crossing.
So now my issue becomes is I'm not totally sure what's beyond this point.
And what I mean by that is that I know where Thompson's Crossing was in relation to the farmhouse, but those were really the only two landmarks I knew in this region. But if I stayed, I was for sure gonna die of starvation. So after taking as many torches from the fire as I could, I slept for as long as possible, and passed time until it was bright enough to head out.
Okay. Properly bright out. I'm going to light up one of my 10 torches. And it's time to go.
I didn't know where I was going, but I set out with the plan to just walk along the road until I found something. And while I was picking up some rocks, my torch went out, which wasn't ideal, but I relit it and continued on. I came across something that I vaguely recognized, and knew that if I followed the trail up, there would be a cave that would take me to a new region. I just had no clue what region that was, but I was willing to take the chance. I dropped my torch in place of having my flare out, because I heard wolves up in the direction that I wanted to go, and was worried that the wind would blow my torch out again at the worst possible moment.
Going flare mode because I don't like my chances. Where is it? Where even?
It was definitely for the best that I had my flare out. I'm pretty sure that wolves won't come near you if you have a torch out, but I knew for a fact wolves won't come by you if you have a flare. And this dude trailed me all the way up until I entered the cave. I, for the most part, went straight through the cave, only stopping to pick a few things up, including this emergency stim, which would be really useful to anyone but me, because I never remembered that I have things like that in my inventory. My flare went out partway through, but I didn't bother using any torches because I really didn't want to use the match, and I could ever so slightly tell where I was going. When I reached the end, I lit up a torch before making my way out of the cave.
Where am I? Coastal Highway. I am not familiar with Coastal Highway.
That's not entirely true. Much like Pleasant Valley, I vaguely know a few areas in the Coastal Highway region.
If I'm thinking right, there might be a gas station or some buildings at the end of this road that could have been a wolf. I think there's also a bear that typically patrols this area.
I unknowingly stumbled upon a lookout tower, so I climbed the stairs and looted the place. There wasn't much to collect, but I did find a wilderness kitchen book, a piece of reclaimed wood, and a note left behind. My hope for survival was dwindling quickly, though.
If there's no food in here, I think I might die. There was no food.
There wasn't any food, and my health was a touch below the halfway point, but I had no plans of laying down and simply dying. Instead, I was going to start a fire and lay down to sleep while I warmed up, so that if I was losing health, it was from one source and not two. I took as many torches as I wanted from my fire and closed the door on my way out.
It really is just a lack of food that's killing me here. I mean, soon it's going to be the lack of matches, but that's hardly the point. Do I risk breaking an ankle?
I did risk breaking an ankle, and somehow managed to get away with it unscathed. I saw a climbing rope, and was going to try and make my way down.
Too encumbered to climb. You're yanking my chain. Way too encumbered to climb. I just threw my freaking torch down there, brother. Scaling we go then. This might instantly kill me.
It didn't, and I once again scaled down the side of a cliff without consequence.
Arms to genius. That might be a possibility too. Oh. Can't believe I got away with that.
I think all the risk-taking paying off was giving me a bit of an ego. I continued into the cabin next to the rope, where I found some jerky in the first cabin, which I immediately ate, and plenty more stuff to burn in the second cabin. When I stepped out of the second cabin, it had gotten rather foggy, but I didn't feel like I had the time to pause and wait it out, so I continued forward.
This might be it. That actually might be it.
Something's making me feel tired.
If that bear can get to me, that's it. It's running, so it can get to me.
I deployed a very advanced and sophisticated fence-sitting technique here, with the plan to run off in the opposite direction the bear came from. Luckily for me, the bear decided to lose interest, and I ran as quickly as I could away from it, ditching the road altogether and just walking down the slope. I was also a dingus and let my torch go out, and I was so low on matches I didn't want to use another one to light a torch. So I pulled out my marine flare for emergency wolf protection and continued down the road. I did see a wolf, but I also noticed another mine, and was really hoping to go somewhere other than the coastal highway. I was so hopeful that I even used another match to light a torch. I found a bag of chips to eat before being very disappointed.
Oh, don't tell me that's the only thing here.
I could eat anything right now.
This is an elevator that only works during an Aurora event. It's the only thing here. This leads nowhere.
So I made my way back out of the cave and made the decision to head in the direction that I thought some cabins might be, instead of going to where I knew a gas station was. But to be fair, I also knew that a bear and I think a moose spawn were also by the gas station. I'm also not positive that the building I'm referring to is a gas station, but if you know what I'm talking about, feel free to correct me in the comments.
I'm hoping wolves still respect the torch. I'm gonna steal some reishi mushrooms to prepare. Because I forgot I'd been collecting them, because I'm a bad gamer.
I also think that I was so focused on not getting startled by this wolf that I failed to see the building I was walking by. I'm not sure if they were the buildings I was thinking of, but I definitely passed by a trailer.
I'm either sorely mistaken, or there are cabins down this way. It's one or the other, and I could be sorely mistaken. I don't think it matters. I think I'm gonna die. I'm dead as fuck. I'm so dead. Oh, and I'm pretty sure the cabins are over by what I just passed. I'm just gonna keep walking. Just keep walking forward till it happens.
And so I did, stumbling slowly forward until I had taken my last step and faded into the long dark. I had managed to survive 2 days in misery mode, which added up to about an hour of gameplay. There were several mistakes I made along the way that someone better at the game definitely would have avoided, but overall this was really fun and I had a good time throughout the whole run. I want to get better at the harder difficulties. But that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did enjoy watching, maybe consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!